Alright, in this video, I want to start taking and replacing some of these parts one by one. So we're going to get rid of the sight first, then the muzzle device, then the forward grip. So we're going to use the parts that are coming with the actual FPS weapon bundle. So we're going to set those up separately. So to begin, you're going to go to a tutorial. We're going to right click, create a new blueprint class. And if we just search for FPS template, you can see all of my provided classes. So one being, we have a sight base. So this is for non-magnified sights. So we're going to grab that, and I'm going to call this BP underscore tutorial sight. We can open that on up. And what we want to do is we want to add a static mesh. So we're going to add a static mesh component, this guy right here, and I will make that the root. Now the only thing we want to do now is go over here to details, search for tag. We're going to add the component tag of FPS part. And that's it. That's all you got to do. So, next up, let's give it the mesh. So let's see, what in the world was it called? Meshes, accessories, T4. So we're going to grab the T4 sight and add it to it. So here we have this guy. Now by default, what we can do is go to M4 and let's replace it with that. So here's the preview mesh with it. We're going to rotate it by 90 degrees and position it where we want. So in my case, I want it to be about right here. That rear sight's going to be, we're going to probably be looking through the rear sight. So for the sake of this video, let's have it up for now. So we'll just have it floating. So if we hit play, oh, sorry, I forgot I still have the default part set. So make sure the part component is set. And we want to add the tutorial sight as the possible part and as the default part. So now when we hit play, you can see we have it right here. So we don't have any sight data for it. So we're basically, like, we're not aiming through it, we're aiming through the iron sights. So we have to set that up. So if we click on the root or class defaults, whichever one you want to click, and here we have aim. So is this aimable? Yes, it is. If so, what socket do we aim with? So that's going to be s_aim. So we have to click to the mesh, go to it, and we want to add a socket. So we can hit on create socket, aim at s_aim, position this wherever we want it, closest to the center. So here's the thing that I have also added that should help this. So here we have the actual reticle. So if I change this, it changes what's on the screen. So that's so I'll just remember RDS. So that's the default one. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that and search for set. Here we have mi_set sight socket. Click that. And basically what this has done, it is put a tiny little dot right where we, son of a gun, my mouse is messing up, or my hand's moving around. Is put a tiny little dot right where we want the center of the reticle to be. So it's just a dot at the dead center of the UVs. So you position it to be as close as possible to the center, which that is. Then once you're done there, you can just revert it back. It doesn't really matter. I think that was this guy. Yeah. So there's our socket. Now let's just make sure it's rotated straight, which it is, because as you can see, we are now aiming with it. So we're now aiming with the red dot. And then that's it. That's all it took. So now I want to cover some of the settings that you can use to tweak how it all runs. So basically, if we come over here under default, here we have things like different reticles that we can use if we want to use them. So for example, I'll add one. Actually, let's start with that last. So starting from the very top, we have camera field of view zoom. So that's right now is at 10. So when I aim in, you can see my whole camera zooms in a bit. What I'm going to do is let's change this one to something like 50. And you can see it zooms in a lot more. So that's one of the things that it controls. I'm going to do something really quick. I'm just going to change the weight of the firearm because it's really, really heavy. So I'm going to go to the firearm, default firearm stats, and set the weight to something like 3. So because that's in kilos, so that should make it a lot snappier, which it does. And it doesn't sway nearly as much. Okay, so back to the sight. So cranking up the field of view zoom cranks up how much it zooms in. And the camera field of view speed, if I change that to 1, it's going to zoom in very slowly like that. So that controls how fast it zooms in this controls how much it zooms in. And then we have the camera distance. So, each sight has their own camera distance. So right now at 0, if we look in, you can see, I'll use this as reference, the charging handle, nearly the bottom of it is right at the bottom of the screen. If I bump this up, let's do 10 for the camera distance, you will see now it is pushed out way farther. So everything's the same. The only difference is it's actually pushing the gun out. So that's what that controls. So I'll set that back to 0, and there's something else I want to show. So here again, we're at the base of the charging handle, or the bottom of the screen's at the bottom of the charging handle, so right in here. And let's say I move the sight farly, like really far forward. So we'll go all the way up here. And then I aim. Well, you can see it is still the same distance away. So the sight is really far away, but the gun has stayed in the same exact place. Let's say we wanted it to be directly behind it. So let's click on the sight. We're going to check use fixed camera distance. So we'll check that. Hit play. So now when we aim, as you can see, I'm super close to it, even though the sight is all the way on the front of the gun. So we're all the way up here. Now let me move this all the way back to where we had it. Well, when I aim now, it is still in the exact same place. So it's basically setting a fixed position that you're going to look through it at. So then once we have that, you can control how far away you want it to be. Oops, that is in the wrong direction. We're going to push it out by 10. And now we're farther away from the sight. So basically you control how close and how far it goes, but no matter where the sight is positioned on the firearm, you're going to always maintain the same distance away from it. So next up, we have reticles. So we have the ability to basically switch and cycle through different reticles. So I'll go ahead and add one, and let's see, mi underscore, I don't remember what some of these were called. Let me check real quick. All right, so under my assets, we have reticles, material instances, and here we have red dots. So we have the red dot, the triangle, the set sight socket. We also have one for the hollow sight. So we're going to add the reticle triangle and the red dot. So if we search for triangle, there's one. Let's add another one. We have the red dot, and let's add a third. I think it's just hollow sight, isn't it? Should be like something. It's EOTech. There it is. So, and then we'll add the EOTech. Okay, so now that we have that, we have the ability to switch through these. So now when I aim, as you can see, it's very hard to see actually, but we have a triangle. And that's just due to how small it is set up. So we have a little triangle. Let's set it up to switch it, so we can switch between different reticles. So basically it's the same exact manner. So if we grab out the firearm, we search for cycle. Here we have cycle reticle, magnifier, laser color, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to make it so when we press M, let's grab this and we're going to change it to M. We're going to change our reticle. So we're just going to cycle through. So let's call cycle reticle. And again, before we do any of that, let's make sure the firearm is in fact valid. So if the firearm is valid, we're going to cycle the reticle. So when I aim, I press M. You can see now it's a red dot, now it's the hollow sight, and now it's back to the triangle. So let me show you how to scale that reticle up. Well, actually, I'll leave that for a separate video. That'll be a better one. But here we can cycle through the reticles that way. Next up, we have the different brightness settings. So by default, it is at 1. If I change this to 0.2 and hit play, you can see it is just barely visible. Like you can almost see through it. And it's just kind of like a haze. Now if I crank this up to something like 10, you can see it is a lot brighter. So you can also cycle the reticle brightness too. So search for brightness, we have increased brightness, and we can choose to increase it or decrease it, and it'll be for the active sight. So we can set up an array of these, so we can have 10 and 1, so let's do 10, then we're going to do 5, then we're going to do 0.2. And you also have a starting index. So basically you can choose between which one of these you want to start with. So if you want to start with 2, you'll start at a brightness of 0.2, and you'll only be able to work your way brighter. If you have, same thing goes for the reticle material, you can choose which one of these materials you want the reticle to start with. So we're going to go ahead and set this up to cycle through. So I'm going to copy this and paste it in, and I'll do N to change the brightness. So get fire, we're going to do brightness. So increase reticle brightness, and we'll increase it. Let's copy this one more time, and we'll change this one from N to B, and we will decrease it. So let's look. Let me go to this guy. So if I press N, you can see it got darker. If I press B, it gets brighter. So you can control how bright and how dark your reticle gets. So that covers all that. And then the remaining stuff is just, again, all the defaults that come with all the parts. So how much does the part weigh? What is the change in the ergonomics? How does it affect recoil? And here you just have part data. And the part data is just there for the basics of firearm customization. So you really don't need to worry about it. All right. That pretty much covers everything that there is to know about sights. So that's how you can control all that. And in the next video, I will go ahead and cover some of the reticle settings to show you how you can tweak them to make it look better for you. So I'll see you in the next video.